And for more news and notes now on the DNC, we're joined via Skype by VOA's Doug Bernard, who is covering the event in Charlotte. Hi, Doug.
Demi, it was so much fun in Tampa, we decided to do it all over again.
I can see. And judging from the crowd, I think you're all having a great time. How much pressure did the RNC put on the DNC and President Obama, too, specifically, to counter some of the allegations about how far the country has come in the 4 years that President Obama has been in charge?
I suppose it depends on who you ask. Republicans would like to think that they've put a lot of heat on President Obama and the Democrats. And in some ways, they have been successful in hanging a question over this entire convention hall. You heard it alluded to earlier. You just mentioned it. It's the big question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Now, the Obama administration has struggled a bit in trying to answer that question, but you can guarantee that this week they're going to have a lot of help here at the Democratic National Convention, and that it's going to, of course, culminate Thursday, and President Obama intends to deal with that question head on and make his case as to why he deserves 4 more years in the White House.
Well, one of the bigger helps, if you could put it that way, is going to come from his wife, very popular here in the U.S., and she's going to speak tonight. What is she going to say? You know, obviously, Mitt Romney's wife came across very lovable, too, last week. Does she have a big point to prove?
I think a couple points. As you mentioned, like Ann Romney, Governor Romney's wife, it's a good thing to have your wife come on in these conventions. It really does help humanize the candidate, and that is important. I mean, there has been some criticism. Some people have found President Obama to be a little chilly. Aloof is a word that's thrown around a lot. But she also has another job as well, and it has in part, I think, to do with more of the composition of the Democratic Party and perhaps a changing demographic here in the United States. A key job of this convention is to reach out to 3 key groups. Those groups are women, Hispanics, and young voters. And you can bet that Michelle Obama will be doing her best to reach out to women tonight, and we're going to hear also a lot tonight and the rest of the week from Hispanics and young voters as well.
And of course, the real big onus here is on President Barack Obama himself. He has to really find a way to communicate to people who are very discouraged. We've been hearing a lot of criticism about his administration over the last 4 years. What can he say that will make people believe in him again to vote for him as they did last time?
You know, yeah, dare I use the phrase that's being thrown around here a lot, the enthusiasm gap. 2008, there was a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for the candidacy of Barack Obama. He was just so new, and of course, he was bringing that promise of changing the tone of Washington. Well, 3.5, 4 years later, Washington's tone has changed, I guess, for the worse. Things really have sort of reached a level of acrimony. A lot of people don't find interesting. So the president's job is to reach out to those people that he reached out to in 2008 and make the case that, yes, I understand it's been a difficult 4 years. Yes, everything hasn't gone according to plan, but I have better ideas. I and the Democratic Party have better ideas than my challenger, Mitt Romney, in the Republican Party. We'll see how he does.
Now, Doug, my final question I want to ask you, which I asked you last week about what makes a Republican, what makes a Democrat?
It's a great question, and I think if you look around the convention hall, you get a sense as to the Democratic Party. Whereas 89% of the delegates at the RNC were white, about 27% of delegates here at the DNC are African American. Fully 50% are women. There is a much more mix of ages and just sort of different faces. So looking around, I mean, I think in general, you get a sense of a more diverse party, a party that's perhaps a little less religious, or perhaps wears its faith a little less on its sleeve, perhaps a little bit more working class as well. But really, I think a very diverse party. Party officials would argue that is much more in keeping with sort of the changing face of America.
Well, thank you so much, Doug. We'll, I guess, be talking to you again on Thursday.
Hope so.
Yes, indeed. VOA's Doug Bernard reporting via Skype from the DNC in Charlotte, North Carolina.